Yeah, 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 yeah.
Cody, make your fucking beats.
I'm about my game. Live by the rules, we don't play the same. That's on my grave, that's on my name. I'm saying, I'm about my paper, about my game. I'm about my game. What is up, everybody? This is Thomas Christopher of the League Winners, and this is another episode of College Football Now. If you're watching this podcast on YouTube, make sure you hit that like button. It's completely free. Also, while you stop by, make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you comment, this is a live show. I will get back to you either while we are running the show or within the next 24 to 48 hours, depending on when your comment is. If you're watching it on Facebook or Twitter, please make sure you're liking. Feel free to comment. We'll get to those as well, and share it on your platforms if possible. This will be a little bit of a shorter show. Some guests aren't able to come. I'm pretty exhausted myself. If you can see, I've aged quite a bit in the past month or so. So I'm actually ready to get out of here myself. But before we get there, part of that is because this past week, I was actually supposed to go to Blacksburg, Virginia, to watch the game between the California Golden Bears and Virginia Tech. And I had a little stop in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And let's just say that stop wasn't great. I ended up catching two flats, but it's not the flats that make the story. The story is, after I got the flats, I've tried calling a towing company. The towing company happened to be a third-party source, which I guess is a little bit scammy, because as I'm on the phone with a friend of mine, I hear a tap at my window on the passenger side, and it's a different towing company who's telling me that the people I just paid to tow my car to the shop to get tires for my car is a scam artist, and that I should hang up and refund. Long story short, we ran into some type of beef with the towing companies. I tried calling the police to actually help me at some point, because it ended up being about over 5 hours waiting. Eventually, I didn't take off until 8 hours later. But after I tried being patient, I tried calling the local police, who told me that they were going to have somebody there, only somebody not to show up. I called back, say it's out of their jurisdiction, called the state police. The state police actually give me the number of the towing company that I called the first time, which was, I guess, a scamming company for all I know. So if you're in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, I really want to give you two middle fingers right now. But I'm going to try to hold myself back a little bit, because maybe I just had the bad luck of the draw. But I was informed by a friend of mine talking to his mechanic who had a similar issue in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. If you're ever traveling, please make sure to avoid that town, to the best of your ability, because otherwise you could end up in a fishy situation like I was in. Unfortunately for me, that ended up being me missing the actual game for California and Virginia Tech, which ended up being what was a nice upset. I mean, Cal went into that game looking to get bowl eligible, and they ended up not doing anything. They ended up losing, a heartbreaker. We'll talk about that one a little bit later. We'll have Cody Henderson on the show. But for now, we are starting with the group of 5, group of 6 teams that we do cover. And I mean, what place to start other than the Delaware Fighting Blue Hens, who ended up beating the Middle Tennessee Blue Raiders this past week. It was a midweek game, that midweek Conference USA showdown between Middle Tennessee and Derek Mason of the Blue Raiders. He has a good defense. I don't want to take that away, but I don't know I think he's a guy who might be a better coordinator than a head coach. Very respectful guy, great guy. But sometimes that happens, and we kind of are seeing that. Shout out to Nicholas Fadiato. He went 31-48. He had 3 touchdowns. He had a weird fumble that wasn't great for him. He also did have an interception that was a tipped pass. But when the offense had to move for Middle Tennessee, he did a great job doing so. He looked like a veteran out there. He is an upperclassman, so that makes sense in that regard. But I was just surprised, considering that Delaware's defense does give multiple looks. They do confuse quarterbacks very easily, to be honest. So it was kind of surprising to see Fatiato, who up until this point hasn't played, I wouldn't say the greatest of football. He looked really good. He ended up passing 9,000 yards in the program. So I want to give a shout out to him. I also wanted to shout out Jaquel Middlebrook. on Middle Tennessee. If you guys aren't familiar with him, you should get familiar with him. He's one of the best running backs in yards after contact per attempt. He's also one of the best pass blocking running backs. I think he's number one actually in all of college football. He's still a sophomore. I would be fairly surprised if he stays at Middle Tennessee. I'm sure a bigger program is going to try to pick him up. He is a very talented player. Cameron Lacey also a very talented player as well. But it was Hunter Tipton, Nazi Cox, and A.J. Jones who actually scored the 3 touchdowns, receiving touchdowns for Middle Tennessee, who only ended up losing that game by 3 points, 31-28. On the Delaware side, Nick Minicucci, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 276 yards. He looked great. The running game didn't have much push again. It was kind of surprising. I think that's kind of what kept the game close for Middle Tennessee. There were some errors there as well. I mean, Kyrie Duplessis also had 7 receptions, 65 yards, 2 touchdowns. Sean Wilson also 2 receiving touchdowns. They got to find a way to get that ground game going. This week, Delaware plays a Liberty team that they are 3-5. They're not doing too fantastic themselves, if we're being quite honest here. I mean, Ethan Vasco, starting quarterback there, he's barely got over 1,100 yards, 6 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He's got a little bit of dual threat ability to him. He has 3 touchdowns on the ground, but he's also dropped 3 balls on the ground too. He has 3 fumbles, and I believe he has something like 200 something yards rushing. The Liberty has not. This should be a game that Delaware wins. Even on the road, they should really win this game. To be honest with you, because I don't know where Liberty can technically beat them. Receiving, I mean, Dante Lee Jr.'s looked okay. Julian Gray's looked all right. Jamari Person. They've looked good. Those are probably their top 3 guys. Reese Smith also has looked okay. Julian Gray, the running back there, but he's been one of their most effective pass catching weapons out of the backfield. They only have 6 passing touchdowns this season, 6 receiving touchdowns. It's not really fantastic, and then we go on the running back side. I mean, Evan Dickens has looked, was probably one of their best guys, close to 400 yards. And then we have Julian Gray, who's kind of been, he's got 116 snaps, only 17 attempts, a lot more used out of the backfield. Now, whether or not that gives Delaware some problems remains to be seen. Personally, I think Manny Rojas and that defense for Delaware Blue Hens is going to be very good. They're just, yes, they can give up points, and yes, they can be a little bit undisciplined at times, but the way that he does things schematically is you got to be impressed by that if you are a college football fan. And I just think going into this week, Delaware has those extra rest days too, coming off of that Middle Tennessee matchup. I just have a feeling that at the end of the day, Delaware is going to get the job done. Head coach Ryan Carty, very pass first guy. They got to find an answer for that rushing attack, though. If there's something that Liberty wants to take advantage of in this game, it's going to have to be the rushing attack. Right now, I'd probably be looking at Joseph Carter, their linebacker. He's got the most stops on the team, but I mean, it's going to be tough. I mean, to be honest, the only guy with double-digit pressures is CJ Basil, one of their edge rushers for the Liberty Flames, and he's only got 10 on the dot, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to double check right now, but I'm sorry, there's Brenton Williams too, another edge. I do apologize for that. So Basil has 3 sacks. Brenton Williams has 1. Everybody else has 7 or less. And against a Delaware offensive line that really does a good job protecting Minicucci and he does a great job navigating the pocket himself. They have to be able to get pressure there, or they're not going to have success against what is a good Delaware football team. It's kind of a shame that Delaware isn't able to participate in the conference championship. They could potentially be bowl eligible if there's not enough bowl eligible teams, but that kind of remains to be seen as to how that is going to end up panning out for them. And also, I was at the Navy and FAU game. Navy ended up beating Florida Atlantic 42-32. Caden Velkamp putting everything on his shoulders. The game started with Caden Shields-Dutton actually at starting running back. He was in there for the first drive. And then there was a lot of Jamari Sands, and we didn't see Caden until closer to the fourth quarter. But Blake Horvath, man, he looks just fantastic. I don't know how you can watch Navy football and not just be impressed by what he's doing. They didn't have to really throw the ball in this game. He had 83 passing yards, but he had 174 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. So, I mean, he needs to be in that Heisman conversation. Brandyn Chapman, too. He had his first 100-yard game of the season, and he was electric for the midshipmen, not just as a running back, but as a receiver, too. Eli Heidenreich was basically quiet in this entire game. He had less than 20 yards rushing and only had 22 yards receiving, and he was a very key player for Navy in this game. It just goes to show that Brian Newberry and this Navy that they can adjust when needed. That we also saw Braxton Woodson get some rub, and he actually had a touchdown, if I'm not mistaken, in this game too. That's the backup quarterback for Navy. So seeing that, Navy has a murderer's row. They do come out of week 9 at a 7-0, but they do have a murderer's row coming up next. They face North Texas this week, and then they also have they go on to face Notre Dame and also USF on November 15th, which I'll be at. But actually, I do have my first guest in here, and we can actually talk about the FAU side before we get into some FIU football, which is actually tomorrow. But you guys know him, you love him. It is Brandyn Pokrass, our Eastern correspondent. Brandyn, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm happy to be back. It's been a little bit of time. I've been running around doing a lot of different stuff, covering games. Weekday Conference USA is it's always a it's always a trip, but yeah, I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. The weekday CUSA stuff has really been throwing me off college football wise, and it's only going to get worse when the MAC ends up doing that after. So that's going to be interesting. But I was just talking some Navy Florida Atlantic. I want to kind of hear what your thoughts are. I mean, we've been calling for Caden Shields-Dutton to start. He finally starts, and then they yank him after the first drive, only for him to come back and actually score a touchdown on 4th down. Incredible pass catching ability by Dutton and just overall athletic ability. But just give me your thoughts on what the program is. They're 3-5 now. Bowl eligibility is now up in the air. Just give me your takes on Florida Atlantic.
Where to start, right? I think the good thing is, they're not getting immediately blown off the field, right? So I new year one, you want to see good signs. And the good sign, in my opinion, is they're not getting blown off the field. They're finding a way to keep games close, To an extent, they kept it close against USF a few weeks ago. They were in that Memphis game until the 4th quarter, and then the wheels fell off, right? Halftime, 3rd quarter, this game was close against Navy once again. So they're doing things right. And I think what stands out in that regard is the defense is making plays early in the game. And I want to emphasize this. They're making plays early in the game. They're keeping the score close. They're keeping the offense in it. And the offense is scoring some points, right? You look at some of their lower level, I say lower level competition, but right now it's all American Conference opponents. You look at what they did against Rice, you look at what they did against UAB, right? These are teams that aren't providing the same level of competition as a Memphis, as a USF, as a Navy. And you're seeing a difference in that offensive production, but they're still finding ways to get points on the board early in these games. However, things seem to fall apart in the back half of games, the later stages of games. I think a common theme is that FAU is getting gashed by the big play a lot, whether it's Memphis hitting multiple 70-plus yard touchdown passes or multiple 70-plus yard touchdowns, right? USF doing the same thing. Blake Horvath looking like the freaking juggernaut in the 4th quarter of that game, just running through tackles. It's partially, I think, a lack of execution. I don't want to ever put words in players' mouths, but it feels like they're feeling the burden of the offense not being able to score, and not the effort, but the execution goes out the window on the defense. On offense, the offensive line seems to not be able to hold up. The run game concepts, the run game itself, the run game execution just isn't there. And then you end up putting everything on Caden Velkamp. And there's only so much you can do when the quarterback is having to play Superman. And credit to him. he's been really damn good. And I want to look beyond the box score. He's doing so much for this offense that doesn't translate into the stat sheet. So many times he's having to get that ball out quicker than he wants because pressure's in his face. This offense is meant to take shots down the field. Those shots aren't there because they can't hold up against these better opponents on the offensive line.
Right.
The run game, I credit both Jamari Sands and Caden Shields-Sutton for anything they're getting, because they're getting contact in the backfield on countless occasions, right? Defensively, I credit the defense for keeping these games close, especially when your offense is going, whether it's 3 and out or losing a fumble on a deep pass that could have changed momentum or drops, etc. It all comes together to where we're at in this current spot with FAU. And that's not even talking about the personnel usage, which we've discussed off air as being confusing and being, a bit different from some teams that are having success in this state. We've talked about, what is the plan now? What is the plan for this program going forward? And that's not even diving into, honestly, the recruiting aspect of things, which, look, yes, it doesn't pertain to the play on the field. Yes, you still have the transfer portal. You have to find a way to, especially when you were a program like FAU, replenish talent on the younger side of things, the high school side of things. Yeah. Look, the facts are the facts. They've lost 3 commitments already. That class is, whether you want to include the JUCO guys or not, 7 or 8 players for 2026. A lot of other first-year coaches have classes that are double that. So you put all of that into a concoction and a mixture, you have a lot of questions, right? You have a lot of questions on where this thing's heading. You have a lot of questions on how things are going to play out. And I'm going to let them play out. I'm not jumping to any conclusions. I'm not jumping and saying this is a failure, this isn't a failure, this is going to be a success, this isn't a success. But when you lay all these things out, there are adjustments that need to be made in terms of how they're operating in these games. There needs to be adjustments in some of the personnel, especially down the stretch and where they are at. There needs to be adjustments in almost every single category. So I think to really just boil it down, I'm in wait and see mode, and I really want to see what happens over the course of these last, I think it's 4 games of the season, correct? Last 4?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, it's Tulsa, Tulsa, Tulane, UConn, and ECU, if I'm not mistaken, attended out. I'm glad you used the word adjustment, because I feel like that's the biggest problem that we're seeing in some of these games where, like you said, they are close games in the first half. And then in the second half of these games, specifically in the fourth quarter, we're seeing that the other teams are just adjusting better than what the Owls are doing now. And the game just starts to slowly slip away from them. We saw that in the Memphis game. USF, maybe a little bit there too, but then USF ended up just blowing the gates out of them for most of that game. And I think that was bound to happen in that game. But then you see it against the Navy game too, where, a great play by Dylan Williams. Shout out to him for 4th down stop on 4th and 2 at the goal line. But outside of that, without that stop, that becomes a 2-score game going into halftime. It doesn't, but then you end up just getting blown out in the second half. I know the score was 42-32, so the 10 points they did cover, but that's pretty misleading. It got to a point where actually Zach Kitley took out Caden Veldkamp in that game because of the trajectory of that game was going. And I'm glad you used the word adjustment, because fortunately for Florida Atlantic, they are on their bye this week. What type of adjustments do you want to see made as they head into this matchup with Tulsa?
I think I'm going to start flipped how I usually do, and I'm going to start with the defense. I want to just see that. I want to see a full 4 quarters of execution. And I'm not saying that they're not going to give up big plays. I'm not saying that they're not going to allow things to happen. But you have to play a full 4 quarters. You can't play 3, 3.5, 2. Want to see the tackling at a high level. I want to see the Owls avoid some of the penalties that they're taking late in these games. I had a chance to watch some of the back half of this FAU Navy game. Few plays where FAU was very lucky they didn't get hit with unnecessary roughness or penalties along the sidelines. So I want to see that focus locked in. I want to see them, regardless of what that scoreboard says, finish that game, because that's how you lay a foundation. That's how you lay a foundation that is built upon in year 2, when the schedule, at least the way we're looking at it now, isn't the same type of schedule you have. You take these tough games and you build upon them going forward. On offense, and this ties into defense too, but more so want to highlight the offensive side of things. I want to see what some of these younger players look like, right? And once again, I'm not in the locker room. We don't know where these guys are at with the playbook, with, understanding the concepts and the formations and all that. I want to preface that right away. But look down the road or look on the other side of the state at USF, right? Look a bit south at Miami. These are programs that are having success. They are relying upon younger players. They are relying upon guys that are new to the program. And look at one of your rivals, right? The Shula Bowl. Head coach Willie Simmons has talked about how important it is in this day and age to play your younger guys. And I think FAU has to reach that conclusion because this is a program that's going to have to be developmental. This isn't a program that's going to be able to, in this day and age of college football, retain all their talent. That's just a matter of facts. That's not me trying to shade a school or anything. The big schools are always going to take from the group of 6. That's just how it is right now until those programs rise and maybe reach that level themselves or get enough funds where there's so many different avenues. But the reality of the situation is you need to constantly develop players. I think some of the guys that are in there have done an admirable job, but you're 3-4 this season. You have a tough stretch coming up. Let's see what Caden Shields-Dunn looks like with a full running back workload. Let's see maybe a few more Ethan Irvin touches. See what you have in the kid to build upon going forward. At wide receiver, let's see what a full run of Brandyn Hoke looks like, right? And you could go down the list, whether it's tight end, whether it's offensive line, whether it's defensive line, edge rusher. Like, you could make a theory, or not a theory, you can make a argument for every position to see something different. Because when you're at this point of the season and your wins are what they are and your losses are what they are, and we all know what they are for FAU, it doesn't hurt to find out. Because what if you overturn a diamond in the rough? And there's another side of this too. Maybe the staff doesn't want all these other schools to see, hey, this guy's a stud. Let's go take him from FAU. That has to be acknowledged. But this is a team that envisions itself having success immediately. If you are still in the business of winning football games and not just focusing on developing players. And by the way, there are teams that do both, and there's nothing wrong with that, especially where certain teams are at in their development cycles. Right. But if the main focus is still we are going out and trying to make a bowl and trying to win games, you have to start seeing some other guys on the field, and maybe they make that difference for you where now you are finishing a game. Now, let's say into a week or two from now, you are finishing a game against Tulane. You are finishing a game against East Carolina. You are finishing that game against Tulsa. And now you feel that much better about your program going forward.
Right. And the thing is, I don't even think you have to necessarily start these players. Just give them more snaps, That's kind of the thing. And it's going into this next matchup, because they do have the bye this week. They are facing a Tulsa Hurricane team where they are literally doing what we are talking about. They're giving their young guys a lot of reps. And quite frankly, I don't think this game is as easy as a lot of people suggest it to be. Jadam Barrett, he has 21 pressures this year. He has 7 sacks on the season. Ray Coney, their linebacker, he also has 20 pressures. For an offensive line that's been struggling to stop pass rushers and really having Caden Velkamp just kind of running for his life more times than not, having to play that Superman role, it's going to be very tough for them. Do you realistically think that I don't want to ask for your prediction per se, but do you think that this game is going to be a lot closer than what people are suggesting, where FAU just kind of runs Tulsa, out of the stadium?
Absolutely, 1,000%. I don't think Tulsa is, the top of the top at the what do you call it in what's the word I'm looking for? The American Conference. I was about to say the American Athletic, and that's unfortunately not what it is now. I just think that these are two teams on very similar timelines. These are two teams on very similar paths of what they're trying to do. They want to compete in this conference, in a conference that looks like one of the best in college football. They want to reach that level of the Memphises, the USFs, the Tulanes, the North Texases, the Navies. They want to be there. And I think the biggest thing is that Tulsa has the experience beating a team that they're not supposed to. They beat that Oklahoma State team, right? That does a lot for building a program, building that culture. Just having that type of vibe. And, before we get to that game next week, we'll do more of a deeper dive and we'll talk about more of, what's going on both sides of the ball. But I just think that if you're for FAU, I can't discount any more of their opponents. It's not like they're playing a UAB that looks so down in the mud, and that UAB team still beat Memphis after they fired Trent Dilfer.
Right.
This is a Tulsa team that has shown they can compete with people. And FAU at its best, they should win this game 100%. The problem is, like a lot of first-year head coaches and a lot of programs going through that rebuild, there have been inconsistencies, and I don't think enough people are taking that into account.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see how the bye week treats Zach Kitley and that Florida Atlantic program. They definitely, as we said, adjustments are kind of the key word being there. And the first head coach, we've seen some guys have blunders in their first year, bounce back, but it's very difficult when you're supposed to be a rebuilding program and you're relying so heavily on incoming transfers from, upperclassmen transfers at that, and relying on them to play a key role. I know that's, kind of how the game goes, but like we've kind of discussed, you got to be able to let your young guys get some run, just some more snaps. Some of the snap counts that we went over, off air are just a little bit ridiculous in terms of rotations of guys. And it's just such a night and day difference between how Tom Herman was last year. So hopefully Kitley gets it figured out. Technically, they are still bowl eligible. Whether or not they hit that given their schedule remains to be seen. I'm optimistic, but they have to play the games first. Tulsa's really going to say a lot about how this team is coming out of that bye week prepared. But first-year head coaches, I think that's a good segue because I do want to talk about the other team that's, probably the FAU's biggest rival, even though they may not want it to be, and that is Florida International. They ended up losing that Vice game. A little bit disappointing probably for them, a little star-studded event. They put a lot into that. But Kennesaw State is no joke. Now you were actually at that game. That's why you weren't at the show last week. Kennesaw State ended up winning 45-26. Now, could you just give your thoughts about that game? Because actually, as fate would have it, FIU also does play tomorrow. So first, let's I want your thoughts on about last week's game for the Vice night.
I'm so glad I didn't mean to segue it like that, but that talk of first-year head coaches, there's always going to be the inconsistencies. It's about how you build upon them. And I think FIU is a little bit different than FAU because FIU's won some of those games that they weren't supposed to. Right. I do the air quotes because anything can happen on any given football game. But, they beat FAU and win the Shula Bowl for the first time in essentially a decade. They go into Western Kentucky and beat a very good Western Kentucky team. Now, that Western Kentucky team may not be on the same level as some of the other Western Kentucky teams in past years, such as the team we had a chance to see at the Boca Raton Bowl last year with Caden Veldkamp and Easton Messer, but still a good program nonetheless, and still a very good staff and everything that's ran over there. Right. But you also have the other side of things. You have the Delaware game, you have the UConn game, and you have the Kennesaw State game, where things aren't going the same way that they were in the victories. And the funniest part about this game for Kennesaw State is that it's exactly the same way the Delaware game went, where FIU was competitive in this one. Like, let's not mince words here. They were competitive. And if a few more breaks go FIU's way, they probably win this game. The long touchdown run down the sideline. Later video evidence showed that the guy stepped out. The refs missed it. That's one of those huge momentum swings. But from an overall sense, outside of some chunk plays, the defense played very well. Outside of some penalties and miscues, the offense was moving the ball. This was the best game that Keywan Jenkins had throwing the ball all year. He looks like he's found his groove again after some really low moments against Delaware and UConn. Kajon Owens is one of the best running backs in college football. I feel very confident putting my name behind that take. He runs great, and he showed even more wiggle than he has in previous games in terms of making defenders miss, not just running through them. even showed some of that burst. And then some of the wide receiver room started to break out a little bit more. And weapons, whether it be an Eric Nelson, a Kyle McNeil, Alex Perry had another game, etc. But when it comes to FIU, it's execution on the back end, it's communication on the back end on defense, and missed opportunities or penalties on offense. The biggest chunk plays happened in this game because of missed tackles or miscommunication. You have a guy running free down the seam to set up one of the first scores of the game for Kennesaw State. That's miscommunication. The tackle along the sideline. Doesn't matter he stepped out. Nobody brought him to the ground. That's how a little 5-10 yard pass turns into a 70-yard touchdown. So you have those things that just swing the game in momentum. You have a penalty on a long Kajan Owens run, whether it be the face mask, which, hey, as head coach Willie Simmons said after that game, you take that from the running back 10 times out of 10 because he's playing aggressive. But you have a guy blocking out of bounds behind the play, which would have been a penalty anyway, takes you out of touchdown range, etc. Don't execute on a fourth and short instead of taking, like, there's all these different types of things that go into a game, and it all combines to that result you get. So it's really just the same stuff. When FIU is winning games, they're communicating well on the back end, they're tackling well on defense, they are smooth executing on offense, and they aren't making mistakes, whether it be holding calls or taking bad penalties or having drops, which was also a problem in this one. When they're losing games, the communication is a bit off, the tackling isn't there, the offense isn't executing at the highest possible level, whether that means the players aren't doing their jobs, or there's drops, or there's penalties. And the latter happened against Kennesaw State.
Yeah, and it's really disappointing to see, but they do have a chance to bounce back against a Missouri State team, which honestly is not that bad. They've had some quarterback issues. Jacob Clark was actually out. He's back now, but they've done a great job spreading the ball around, man. They have multiple receivers over 200 receiving, actually over 225 receiving yards. Tristan Gardner, he's a class of 2029 guy for the NFL draft. He's one of their good guys. So they have a combination of being able to spread the ball around, but that kind of plays into FIU because FIU has a lot of really good coverage guys on the back end. How do you see tomorrow's matchup kind of playing out between Missouri State and Florida International?
I think it's going to be a closer game than people think. I'm pretty sure last time I checked, I don't check odds religiously, but I think Missouri State was favored. Missouri State has a good passing attack. They have a solid rushing attack. They have some guys on defense that can make plays and have made plays, but they're not this dominating unit. I think when it really comes down to it, it's the same story a lot of these Conference USA games have been for FIU. If FIU executes and doesn't make mistakes and hurt themselves, I like them to win this game. If FIU commits bad penalties or has those miscommunications and isn't the crisp unit they've been in their victories, I think it's going to be a much closer game, or Missouri State's going to have a considerable margin in it. It really, I hate to boil it down to just these simple thoughts, but FIU really just can't beat themselves.
Yeah.
They've shown the talent to compete against the best opponents on their schedule. They really have. They have all the talent to win any game they step foot on the field. They just happen to beat themselves sometimes. And when they put themselves behind the 8 ball, and this is another big thing, they are not the most equipped team to come back. This is a team that's at its best playing either even or ahead. And if they do that, I like their chances. If they make mistakes and fall behind, it's going to be a tough one for the Panthers.
Yeah, I think being consistent is key. I think you hit the nail on the head there because Keon Jenkins has shown he can be really good, but other times he can show hesitancy in the pocket where he's not sure whether he wants to go to his read, whether he wants to take off, and that can lead to mistakes happening, whether it's an interception, an errant throw, or a bad sack, or who knows. Once you start waiting and once you start waiting and stop just making moves like right when you have to, I think that's when problems. I mean, it's that old, it's that old concept of you don't want to think, you just want to do. That's what they do in MMA. That's what they do in football. They do that in a lot of basketball too. You just want to shoot. Baseball as well. I mean, every sport, they basically have guys where your preparation is supposed to make you not hesitant when you actually have to play the game. And they do have a great running attack. KJ Owens is just I have to agree with you, man. He needs to be given more love. I hope that we see him potentially in the Shrine Bowl or maybe even the Senior Bowl, because he's a very underrated asset in college football right now at the running back position. And I'm very interested to see how Brian Blades and company really hold down that back end if he's still 100%, because I think Missouri State is not a bad team, but I think FIU is a better team than what people are giving them credit for, despite their 3-4 record. But I do want to segue into the last Florida team that we do cover. And actually for this one, I'm going to bring in our other guest who is also in the green room, and we'll have a nice little trio going. You guys know her from her coverage with the South Florida Bulls. You know we love her. It is Mackenzie Neglia. Mackenzie, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing all right. How are you guys?
Doing fantastic. Brandyn, I do want to start with you because you actually traveled to this game. I know my little screen's moving all over the place. You actually ended up traveling to the Memphis game. USF got out to a quick lead, thought that they could have potentially put it away, but Memphis had a very inspired fourth quarter. Just give your thoughts on how that game went down in your eyes.
Look, this was billed as the Group of 5 Super Bowl, the Group of 6 Super Bowl, Game of the Year, and it lived up to it. And USF did a lot of really great things for the majority of this game. Like, I don't want that. I don't want people to lose sight of that. This wasn't a game lost because USF, just had a slow descent and just did a lot of things. Like, USF obviously lost the game, but it really was, it took a fireball fourth quarter from this Memphis team to beat USF. Brendan Lewis completely flipped the switch in the fourth quarter. Had more mobility than he had the entire game, and it's making plays outside the pocket. There's some plays it looks like he's playing college football 26, where he's run to the sideline, defense thinks they have him out, and he's just throwing a pass across his body to open receivers. The run game found a bit more space because, football, it's a long game. You can't always execute on every single drive. And USF's defense lost a little bit, right? They lost a little bit, and that ended up cascading. There's a miscommunication where a post route gets wide open, splitting safeties down the field that helps set up a touchdown, right? The Lewis plays that I mentioned, they're not getting him down anymore, keeping him in the pocket. He's now escaping and running and making plays. That combined with the USF rushing attack not getting rolling, and those runs forcing them in the third and longs and second and longs, and them not completing those passes, which then forces the punts, and everything just starts cascading. It literally just took one bad quarter, to sway everything. And the funniest part about this, or I wouldn't say funniest, but the craziest part about this, is that USF still had a chance to tie this game. They drove right down the field on Memphis. A little bit more time, I think they score a touchdown and potentially win this game. But they have the shorter field goal set up. They take the holding call. Now it's a 50-plus yard field goal for Grammatica. Bad snap. Holder somehow gets it down, kicks wide left, I think it was wide left.
I think it was wide left, yeah.
Hard to tell in the press box sometimes in terms of like where you gauge it. But yeah, and USF loses. But this isn't a game where I would say, the player, it's on the players, right? It's a combination of things, right? Maybe if USF takes that initial field goal to go up 10 instead of going for it and not getting it, that lead turns into 17. But they still had the 14-point lead. So it's like, now we're picking nits at, okay, do we want this 2-score lead or this technically 3-score lead, right? The fourth quarter, right? Like, okay, maybe we should have milked off more clock, but is that going to stop anything if Memphis is driving down the field and they're converting on fourth downs and it's communication? It's just a combination of a bunch of different things that lead to this loss. And that happens in football. That happens when two good teams play each other. That happens when you're battling, in USF's case, in a hostile environment that's booing them after every injury. Like, this isn't something that is just very straightforward in my eyes. It's not like, hey, this one thing happened and USF lost. Or, hey, the coach made one decision and it caused this entire game to get out of hand. It's a buildup of these little things, these little details over the course of this fourth quarter that leads to, and technically end of the third quarter if you really want to take it that direction. But it's these little things that happen in the fourth quarter that bring you to that result. And I think what USF fans or people that follow this team should take solace in is, despite all of that, they had a chance to still put that to overtime. It's still a very talented team. I hope people understand that USF season is far from over, considering what these American Conference competitors to them still have to play. What USF has in front of them is one of, in theory, the easier schedules. There's a lot of football left. So, yeah, not a great loss, but things are by far not over yet.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Mackenzie, actually, I talked about this with you last week when we had you on the show. You thought it was going to be a very close game. So I just want to hear quickly how your thoughts were on this contest in USF, just falling short against Memphis.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people are mad about the play calling. I mean, it is what it is. I personally don't think it shouldn't have come down to a grammatical field goal at the end. It was kind of, they were explosive to start, but they, like Brandyn said, they had that kind of fourth quarter collapse even before then, where the offense struggled to get anything going, and the defense just wasn't able to make those stops that they needed to.
Yeah, it was surprise. I don't want to say surprising because the first half I was obviously at the Navy game and I saw the first half and I'm like, oh, they have this in the bag. And to cap that off was just an insane rush by Byron Brown, which I gotta put this one up because we're gonna have to watch this. I have to tee this one up.
To the house.
Oh,
Touchdown!
I mute that.
Let's mute that. I'm sorry. Let's look at this run. I mean, he hurdles him, shakes off another tackle, goes into the end zone. I ended up seeing that one. I'm going to stop that live after that. Let's hope we don't get dinged on that one. I had to stop that. I had to stop myself. I'm watching that. I'm like, is that real? That was a super. I mean, what quarterback do you guys know that can just hurdle a guy after breaking a tackle? It's like it's nothing and then keep going for a touchdown. Byron Brown is not human. He was made in a lab somewhere. Maybe there's a mix of some Cam Newton DNA splicing that's going on. He looks fantastic. I mean, Brandyn, I just want to give your thoughts on him because we've been talking about him being a potential Shrine Bowl guy. So I just want to hear your take on Byron Brown, his positives, what he has to work on going forward.
I feel like the constant every week is that he's just an absolute monster with his legs. He's such a fun player. I mean, I remember I texted with you after that play where I was in the process of writing how I think it was either Singleton it was Christian Neptune. Christian Neptune had two nice receptions, nice route running plays to set up that. And I'm in the process of typing this post and I just look and I see that play unfold live. And I'm like, wow. Oh, I'm like, what did I just watch? And that's happening every week, right? Like that's the type of runner, that's the type of athlete that Byron Brown is. But I think the more important thing, especially when you bring up the Shrine Bowl, is I feel like he is taking incremental steps every week as a passer. Between that first week and that first weekend's Boise State and now, feels like he's getting the ball out faster. Feels like he's being more decisive. This week specifically, this past week against Memphis, felt like he's getting through his reads, understanding when to run, when not to run. His offensive line gave him a ton of time on a lot of different plays because they weren't sending as many blitzers because they wanted to prevent Brown from escaping the pocket and getting downfield. But he did a really good job as a passer, and that's what you want to see. Obviously, the mechanics are going to be a talking point. Obviously, the offense that he's in is going to be a talking point, but he's displaying that he can make all these different throws all over the field, and it's been that way all year. What I will say is, when with great power comes great responsibility, and sometimes Byron Brown makes some throws that a lot of quarterbacks probably would get dinged for. He ends up completing some of those passes. There was a pass in the fourth quarter, I think about halfway through, where he throws a post into quadruple coverage. And this is a ball that most quarterbacks probably would have intercepted. This ball hits off his receiver's hands and would have been the catch of the game by a mile if I think it was Singleton brings it in. But it's one of those decisions where it's like, hey, don't do that next time. Check it down or live the fight another play. It's those types of things where it's like, all right, can you work on that and make sure when you are taking those shots, you're taking that in smart capacities? Can you keep working on the footwork, keep working on the mechanics, understand those different aspects of the quarterback position? I think when it really comes down to it, for me, I see him as the perfect round 3, round 4 quarterback at this moment before we even get to the draft process or all that. And I'm not saying that he's going to be a hit. I'm not saying that he's going to be the next superstar right away. But I feel like when you look at things, right, he's just turned 21. He's a quarterback that can push the ball down the field, that has the arm strength, has shown that he can have touch. He's a quarterback that has all the athletic ability that you need at the next level. Why shouldn't a team like a 49ers, a Vikings, a Colts, run down the list of these teams that have developed these guys? What's the risk in taking a shot on him? What's the risk in taking a shot on a guy with all the tools in the world, starting experience, and still having that young age? I don't really see a downside. And I'm excited to see how he bounces back after. He still had a great game against Memphis, but how he bounces back after that loss down the stretch against UTSA, against Navy, against UAB, against Rice. If there is a conference championship appearance, I want to see how he handles that. If by some chance USF does make the college football playoff, all my eyes are on that because that will be like the eval for him. I'm really excited to see how this progresses because he's a name that I feel like isn't getting pushed enough. Yet when you look at the guys that probably would be thrown to that category with him, why wouldn't you take the guy with the tools that can potentially have that ceiling that not a lot of other guys do?
Yeah, and he's young to boot, man. He's not going to be coming out into the draft as like a 20, not even a 23, 24, 20. He's going to be, 21? I think he might be 22 maximum by the time he starts.
He just turned 21. He's going to
Yeah, so he'd be 22 by the time the NFL season starts. That's a pretty young get. Now, Mackenzie, I do want to ask you, because we talked about this last week. I thought there was potential Alex Golesh could maybe potentially leave USF. Now, after that last loss, fans are not the happiest with him, to say the least. Do you think that criticism is warranted given where he's taken the team thus far, or do you think that's just like fans being fans?
Oh, that's a good question. I think that I don't think it's entirely fair to blame like the coaching staff. Yeah. I think like at the end of the day, the team lost. Like the USF lost that game. Whether it was mostly from play calling and stuff like that. There's can't really do anything about that. But I think that given with what he's done for the team this season, especially this season with the run that they're on, I think fans are still hopeful. Like this was a slip up. This was like a trap game in a way. And they're going to kind of see through to what happens next.
Yeah, no matter what, we kind of knew it was going to be a very close game. Unfortunately for USF, they weren't able to do it. Thankfully, they're on a bye and they're able to fix and clean stuff up before they're on a short week against. Well, I'm not sure because they have a bye. Ignore that part. They play on a Thursday. We got some American Conference. Was it Thursday night football? And I think you're both going to be at that game. So I mean, just very quickly, Brandyn. Like, is there anything you want to see from that out of USF coming out of the bye?
Coming out of the gates hot. USF has struggled at times at coming out of the gates hot. They did it against Memphis, do it again against UTSA. And then the second part of that is finish the game, right? Yeah. Don't take your foot off the gas. Don't get comfortable with the 2-score lead. This is football. Anything can happen. This is college football. Teams can score at the drop of a hat in lightning quick speeds. UTSA is still a team that has talent. They've underachieved compared to what people thought they would be this year, but this is still a very talented football team. This is not a game you can overlook coming off the bye, after what you had happen against Memphis, and especially with Navy around the corner. You can't let this thing cascade. You have to start fast, obviously succeed in the middle 8, and finish strong.
Yeah, Mackenzie, is there anything you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it too is it's something we've kind of talked about, and I guess a lot of people have talked about, but like the schedule for them has been draining, and it's not that they can't handle it, but it's been a lot. So I think like you have to take the bye week. You know, they talk a lot about process. You know, get your mind right, get your body right, reset, alter your process if that's what it takes. But this week is the rebound game in a sense, because then you have to go to Navy after that and play a really good Navy team.
Yeah. It's not going to be, it's a lot of times just getting away from football, being able to recover. Football really is a war of attrition, especially when you have a schedule like this. It's good to get a bye week where they have one, because they still do have a tough upcoming schedule. And I'll actually be at that USF Navy game. So hopefully we get a great game. But before we get out of here, Mackenzie, can you just let everybody know where they can find you on your social media and everything?
Yeah, all my USF coverage is on my X, and it's just at my first and last name, Mackenzie Neglia.
Awesome. Mackenzie, thank you so much for stopping by. I appreciate your patience, and as always, I appreciate your coverage. Thank you so much.
Of course, I appreciate y'all. Have a good one.
Take care. That is Mackenzie Neglia. You can find her on X/Twitter at MACKENZIE. Neglia is NEGLIA. That is for all USF Bulls coverage. Brandon, before I get you out of here, brother, let everybody know where they can find you at on your social media.
So I'm on Blue Sky. I'm on Twitter. I am on Instagram, BPOC24 for those last two. If you're really interested in Blue Sky, just search my name. You'll find me there. I'm very excited for this weekend because I do not have an FAU game. I don't have an FIU game. And it's not a USF game. However, I will be in attendance and covering Florida, Georgia. So that is going to be fun. Please stay tuned for coverage from there. It's going to be fascinating on multiple fronts. The first game without Billy Napier for the Gators. Georgia marching towards potentially another SEC championship game appearance or another college football playoff appearance. Can the Gators play spoiler? Can they win one last one for Billy? I don't know, but I think it's going to be a very fun one. So very excited. And Thomas, as always, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, breaking news. I don't think any expected you to be going there this weekend. But Brandon, thank you so much for coming on, brother. I appreciate you.
Have a great one.
Yep, that is Brandyn Pokrass. You can find him on X/Twitter at BPOC24. And now my next guest is in the room. He's actually been very patient. I do apologize. I'm about to bring him in a second. Covering the California Golden Bears, it is Cody Henderson. Cody, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, bro. Thank you so much for coming on. I know last week was rough for me, and it ended up being rough for Cal too, going over to Blacksburg. Ended up losing to the Hokies in overtime, final 42-34. What were your thoughts on that contest?
That this California Golden Bears defense is incredibly soft. Outside of Cady Luave, you saw a bunch of members of the secondary, especially Hezekiah Masses, make a lot of personal business decisions. I don't know if you saw that clip, Tommy, of Drones running down the sideline to the right off the right hash, and he just completely gets out of the way. I don't know. That was sickening to watch. It was sickening to watch all of their tackling, to be honest, besides Zuluave. I mean, he had like 18 or 19 tackles. He got ACC linebacker of the week, but everyone besides him played soft. And also the coaching staff, I don't know how you cannot stop a read option 20 straight times in a row, but for some reason, Cal couldn't do it. And that was just, I don't know, that was just very disheartening performance.
Yeah, it was pretty shocking. I did see the clip of Kyron Jones running, and Hezekiah Masses just kind of, it almost looks like he like pushes him. I don't even know, like there was no attempt at a tackle there. And that was he ended up scoring a touchdown just running over parts of the Cal defense. Given Ron Rivera being there now, and given just Wilcox being a defensive guy, Luave as kind of the star on that defense, I mean, just seeing them playing that soft was really discouraging to see. Now they face another Virginia team at home this week. This time it's a ranked opponent. The game is an early game too, which is kind of surprising. Potentially could be in Cal's favor, perhaps. Who knows? Maybe not. I mean, I personally, I don't know. What are your thoughts going into this contest? Because they are. I mean, nobody expected the Cavaliers to be as good as they are, and now they're running in hot, and now they're ranked going to Memorial Stadium.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very interesting matchup. I think Cal certainly has a chance, especially at home. Virginia just barely beat UNC like Cal did, kind of came down at the last play too in that game.
Yeah.
I do feel like Cal does kind of match up well against the Cavaliers, but at the same time, it doesn't really make a difference for teams on the East Coast to come all the way over to Cal. I mean, they still get wins. It's not like the other way around where Cal's got to go to the East Coast. Teams have no problem playing in Berkeley right now. So, man, you would think that this could be a game that they could maybe sneak one out, but I don't know. Virginia's just a better team right now. Cal's coaching staff feels like a mess. If it's not one thing, it's another. And what started out as another hot start has turned into another spooky October for Justin Wilcox. They've got 4 games left, and none of them are easy. So can they even get into a bowl game at this point? It always feels like it's a fight for that 6th win. Ron Rivera has mentioned multiple times that 6 wins is not good enough. 7 wins is not good enough. I don't know, but it kind of feels like the writing's on the wall.
That's what I was going to ask you next, because, Cal did get off to that quick start. They did have the 5 wins. That now a potentially conference championship might not be in play. They might be more of a spoiler than a contender, I guess. Do you think if Cal ends up getting to 6, or if Justin Wilcox isn't able to get 8 or more wins, do you think he's gone?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, I thought so. And before I get you out of here real quickly, Cody, I just wanted to get your continued thoughts on Jaron Singapulatelli. JKS, he's looked good to begin the year. I don't want to say he's cooled off, but the hype around him, I guess I'll say, the national hype, they've kind of dimmed down because of Cal losing the game in the close game with UNC. What are you seeing from him that's impressing you, and what do you want to see him work on?
I think his mental toughness is awesome. I mean, he's dealt with more drops than any other quarterback in all of college football. I think Cal's number 1 or number 2. And he still trusts his guys, and he still tries to put balls in places that are, incredibly difficult. But he had 2 touchdown passes dropped back-to-back on back-to-back plays last game.
Yeah.
It's like that every game. I mean, you've got guys that are dropping it. I don't know. It feels like there's 5 or 6 drops a game, if not more. So I'm incredibly impressed with his mental toughness. He still makes those true freshman mistakes. For instance, in the game, he could have just dropped. He fumbled the snap, and instead of jumping on it, he just picked it up and then ran around and then threw it out of bounds and then got the intentional grounding when he could have just lost 2 yards on the snap. So you still see those little things that a true freshman does, but at the same time, I mean, I'm incredibly impressed by his mental toughness. I think that's a very good start for an 18-year-old.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at this point, especially if Cal can retain him, which I think they won't have a trouble doing. I think it's the sky's the limit in terms of what JKS can provide for the Golden Bears. Now, Cody, before I get you out of here, man, can you just let everybody know where they can find you out on your social media?
Yep, you guys can find me on X at all undercase Cody CODY TLW, Cody the League Winners. So that's where I do all of my Cal stuff. You can catch all of my content there.
Awesome, Cody. I appreciate you coming on and taking the time out, brother. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate you, Tommy.
That is Cody Henderson of the League Winners. You can find him on Twitter/X at CODYTLW at Cody the League Winners. Cal will have to face that Virginia team. It's going to be interesting to see if they are able to upset the Virginia Cavaliers at home. Now, normally I do have Dan Tortora on and Shane Barrett. Dan Tortora is he's currently in costume. Shout out to Dan. Didn't think it'd probably be best to have him on, considering he was going to be dressed up in a Halloween costume. Halloween is right around the corner. But shout out to Shane too for being understanding and taking the time out to he offered to come on as well. But I do have to get out of it. But before I get out of here, I do really quickly want to touch up on the Syracuse Orange. And like I said, if you guys are watching this show, if you're watching it on YouTube, please make sure to like. If you're watching it on YouTube, make sure to subscribe, comment as well. We'll get to all the comments either live or 24 to 48 hours after the show. If you're on Twitter/X or Facebook, make sure you like the show as well. It's completely free to do so. Feel free to leave a comment as well. Always get back to the comments. I do want to talk about Syracuse and head coach Fran Brown as they host UNC and Bill Belichick on Friday night, Halloween football. For the Syracuse Orange at JMA Wireless Dome. It's a tale between two quarterbacks that have really been performing poorly. Syracuse side, you do have Ricky Collins. The team has been winless since Ricky has taken over for Steve Angeli. On the other side, you have Gio Lopez, who came in from South Alabama. Great year last year. This year looks like a completely different player, not able to read the field, not making the right decisions. Shout out Will Shipley, though, on UNC. He has looked great. Syracuse has a lot of weapons, too, so it's actually unfortunate to see their offense kind of struggling a bit. Yasin Willis, Jonte Cook. They do have Boobie Johnson back. Shout out to him. And, Daryl Gill having a breakout year for Syracuse as well. There's a lot of guys on that Syracuse offense. So seeing that passing attack struggle, seeing a lot of guys open. Shout out to Dan Villari, two tight end, really stepped up this year. But it's a tale between two bad offenses, man. Either we're going to see a shootout, because that's usually how these things are, but the defenses are great too. So we might end up seeing a defensive showing between. I'm really curious to see how the front seven for Syracuse gets at the quarterback, stops the run, forces Gio to kind of have to use his arm. On the other side, my key player for UNC is Thad Dixon. I think there might be opportunities for him to bait Ricky Collins into some bad plays downfield. Going to be very interesting to see. I'm also curious to see if Demetrius Samuel, how he continues to perform. The true freshman, he's looked fantastic. Had I don't want to say rough start to the year, but he was starting to get picked on. He's not getting picked on anymore. Teams are really starting to take notice and play him well and good. So I do want to see, and he's starting to play well and good. Discombobulated. I do apologize. I did reference at the beginning of the show I was tired, so please bear with me. If the eyes in the widow's peak in the crow's feet aren't giving you enough about my current state. But yeah, Demetrius Samuel has looked fantastic. His coverage skills have greatly improved. He's not being targeted as much. It just shows that he's really taking the time out and performing well. Be interesting to see which one of these teams comes out on top. Then I'll also be out Maryland this week as well as they host Indiana. Fernando Mendoza and the number 2 ranked Hoosiers come in to face on Terrapins and Malik Washington. Malik Washington is another freshman quarterback who's looked fantastic this year. Meanwhile, Fernando Mendoza, former Cal quarterback, he's looked Heisman winner-esque. And if you've been following me, you know that I've been calling him the quarterback one of the 2026 NFL draft class since last November. So just keep that in mind. Don't want to, just saying. That should be an interesting game. Elijah Surratt has looked great as a wide receiver for the Hoosiers. It's going to be a good game. Hopefully it's a good contest, and it'll be a good point of reference for where Maryland is at in their season, because they've had a surprising start after having to go with the freshmen this year. So a lot of interesting stuff happening this weekend. Make sure you guys are staying tuned. Like I said, man, we do this every week, try to bring you guys who are on the ground, guys and girls who are on the ground reporting at location on site. But this is Thomas Christopher, the League Winners, and I apologize for cutting this episode an hour short, but I am quite busy, and I do have some other engagements I have to attend to. So appreciate everybody's time. Make sure you're following at Tommy CFB, or you're following at League Winners CF. I apologize. With that, I'm just humbling, stumbling, bumbling my way to this exit. So until next time.